Hi, about 2 years ago, I was in a very dark place mentally. COVID was peaking, my career wasn't going into the right direction, and I started to feel lost and empty inside. But I didn't want to give up, I wanted to push through it, and started as a small resistance. Turned out into serious health problems. It affected me physically, it affected me mentally to the point where I was burnt out and just couldn't move anymore, just couldn't handle my day-to-day life. When I hit my lowest point, I promised myself that once I get out of this, I will tell people my story. I will tell everything that I needed to hear back then. And this is what this video is about. But let's start from the beginning. I think I can speak for all of us when I say 2020 life was different. We were not stuck in our homes, we could travel, we could meet our friends, and our professional life was not mainly in our living rooms, but we were going to the office. And when all this started, I was pretty sure I'm resilient towards all these challenges that are coming up. I was pretty sure as long as I accept all these changes, all these challenges that are coming my way and don't resist it, I will be able to handle it. I was in general a very positive guy and thought I'm resilient towards negative emotions. I don't need to feel negative emotions. Just stay positive, just continue what you're doing. I was going for a promising career and things were going in the right way for a while. But later I would find out that I was very wrong with the way I thought or the way I approached things. Because then the harsh reality kicked in and things slowly started to change. In my work, I started to face more and more challenges that I couldn't deal with immediately or that I struggled with. And then the stress level increased and I thought, okay, maybe, just maybe, I'm not resilient. Maybe I'm not as strong as I thought I was. And COVID also kind of regulated the whole rest of the life to like sit at home doing home office and stuff like this. And I realized during home office that my thoughts kind of changed. Like the way I look at the world kind of changed. 3 days in home office was not good for me. Even like you go sometimes for a walk or something like that, come back, but then step by step, I realized that things kind of, like the whole perspective kind of became a bit darker. And then I was like, no, I cannot accept that. I have to resist that. I have to fight myself out of it. I have to work more or whatever. And things didn't go as well as planned. I realized, okay, the job will not fulfill me or will not go into the right direction. I started to create a business with my best friend, but already I felt by then a resistance, inside resistance, and I knew I'm good at fighting resistance, so I have to fight myself out of it. As every time when I felt resistance, whether it was like facing my fears or whatever, it was something good, something that I could grow on. So I tried to push myself out of this resistance and continue going to work, trying to work on the business with my friend and stuff like this. And the resistance became bigger and pulled me down stronger. And on this point, I realized that it's not just work or it's not just like tasks or something, but it covers every aspect of my life. I started to enjoy things less that I used to love. I started to lose my humor, and the attitude towards life completely started to change. And that scared the hell out of me, because the only thing that was always constantly there and that I would always be able to rely on was the attitude towards life, was the way I approach things. It doesn't matter if the job changes, it doesn't matter if I make a mistake or fail in some things. I always can get up and continue doing things and learn from it and just be myself again. But then I started to lose myself, and that was a very scary part, or a very scary time. And it was this internal fight with myself. On one side I thought, I don't want to do this anymore, and I'm not enjoying this anymore. Is this what life's supposed to be like? Just going to work every day, dragging yourself out of bed, doing something that you not really enjoy, and then coming home and then waiting for the weekend and then getting drunk on the weekend and continue. And that is always what I didn't want, what I wanted to avoid by being curious, by working more, or like going more out of my comfort zone and experience different things. This is exactly what I wanted to avoid, but this is what I was more experiencing through that. So on one side it was this, and on the other side you kind of have to pay bills, you kind of have to keep working, and also this internal thought or energy that I cannot give up. Like, who am I if I'm giving up? I cannot stop fighting this resistance. And it started to affect me physically. I started to have digestion problems. I started to have like this pressure on my head constantly. And then I started to have this tinnitus, which came from a motorbike trip. But the doctors, I went to several doctors, they said, no, this is stress related. And at the end, it also didn't matter what it is from. I had this consistent beeping sound in my ear, which was driving me crazy. Sometimes I woke up in the middle of the night and then I hear this constant beeping sound, and I was trying to silence it. I was trying to silence my thoughts that became more negative. I was kind of trying to get away from this and stuff, but my sleeping went down. I started to have physical problems and everything. And in my weird mind constellation, I would say, or in my weird thoughts constellation, I thought if it's painful, that means I'm growing, like I'm developing somewhere else, like I'm doing something good. It needs to lead to something. But the more time passed, the weaker I felt. And then I realized, okay, I actually need help. I will not get out of this by myself. And then I found a therapist, and then I went to the therapist and I asked him, hey, I feel this inner resistance. It's hard for me to get out of bed. Can you do something about it? If not, it's cool, but maybe. And in the beginning, I thought, okay, I'll go to therapy. I'll be a few sessions. He'll fix me, or he's gonna tell me what to do, what to improve, and then I just can continue and work myself out of it. But that was not the case, because he made me ask me questions, and I spent maybe 4 or 6 months around that, still going to work, although I was not productive anymore, and I was trying to kind of hide almost in a certain way. Still going to work, still maintaining this facade that I still have my life under control, although that was not the case anymore at all. And everything that I learned in therapy was kind of helping me, but I tried everything that I learned there to repair the facade. I realized, okay, this actually can lead to improvement, but then I hit a new low because I fell into old patterns again, and I still realized that I was actively working against myself. And after this period of time, I said to myself, I cannot do it one day longer. I cannot work against resistance anymore. So I left work, I went home, and then went on sick leave, and then I realized, shit, this is not it. It's not what I expected it to be. Like, from now on, things will improve. But from then, I just realized how big the damage is that I was doing to myself, and how I ruined myself mentally, physically. Everything came together. I had a worst cold, one of the worst colds of my life, which put me like 2 or 3 weeks into bed. That didn't help either. But then I lost the last part of structure of my day-to-day life. And then I reached the very lowest point where I officially said to myself, I give up. I cannot do this anymore. I give up all my plans, all my goals, everything that I was trying to get myself out of it really quick, and everything, all this, I failed, and that is it. I admit it, and I give up. And then for the first time, I kind of admitted that I was a broken man and that I cannot fight myself out of it, but recover naturally. And from this point on, I told myself, because before my goal was, I'll fight myself out of it, I recover, and then I tell everybody how quickly I can recover and how fast that process goes, and try kind of try to be smarter than nature, if that makes sense. And of course I failed in this, because you cannot be smarter than nature. But that was a difficult lesson to learn. And when I gave up, I realized, nope, all of this was stupid. I cannot fight myself out of it. And then I realized that recovery does not come from the bottom. It's not a work from the bottom to the top, but from inside out. Because what happened before was I tried to be someone that I'm not, like at work, in life, whatever, and especially with already being at the point where I was burnt out and depressed and whatever. I tried to show to everybody else that I'm working on it, oh, I'm fine, it's all good. And this, keeping this facade on, keeping this mask on, really costs a lot of energy. And then I realized, okay, I have to drop everything. I have to be here in bed or be here on the sofa and just allow myself this situation. That took a very long time, to allow myself this depressed state, or this state of burnout. And from that point on, my voice changed to myself. The way I talked to myself, I was not like, hey, you lazy piece of shit, get out of it, do something about it. But I was like, hey, you can do this. Take your time, but you'll manage. And then I started slow process of recovery. And then I started to slowly motivate myself out of it. Sometimes I felt like, oh yeah, tomorrow I'm back to normal again. Then I can start running. And that was not the case. And then you fall down again. So you realize, okay, this was actually too much. And then sometimes I set myself a go for a walk in the park, or go for grocery shopping or something, and then ticked it off. And step by step, I started to realize what I can do in this moment and what is too much, get a feeling for this. And what burnout did to me was I completely lost the connection between body and mind. I didn't even understand that all these problems that I had with my body before, all these things that I mentioned before, that was actually mental, connected with my mental issues, or with my burnout, with depression, whatever. And then I started to kind of form that connection back, started to gain the trust back to myself that I lost. And that was a huge, difficult thing to do, actually. That was really a big task to kind of, I don't know, it's like almost like when people have a stroke, they have to relearn everything new. I can compare it, I don't want to compare any diseases or anything like that to physical diseases, but I can imagine it is something like that. So I had to relearn everything from scratch. I had to learn trust myself again, to do minor tasks, to everything that was stressing me out so much that I was avoiding from the beginning. Sometimes I had days where I couldn't go to the mailbox, or it was stressing me out to get a phone call done or something like that. It goes really, really down, and then regaining that trust back was a very complicated, long process. And once I got that trust back, I think it took me like 4, 5, 6 months, something like that, that I realized actually, oh, this is not forever, this state. This is not normal, because when you're there, you think, oh my God, this is it. That is what the rest of your life will be like. And you realize, okay, this is actually not normal. This was actually also a state of mental exhaustion, of burnout and whatever. And then I started to realize what the burnout actually was. The burnout was a protection from the body to do myself more damage, it forced me to not do anything. It kind of shuts off your mind, your body functions, whatever, that you don't have anything else to do than accepting it. And until I learned that lesson, it was very long process. And because I'm a stubborn guy, I'm like, no, I'm stronger than this. I can prove other people wrong, and tell that burnout is not such a bad thing, or it's easy to recover. And then I had to prove myself wrong, which is way more difficult than proving others wrong. But that was a very long, difficult journey. And during that time I was still going to therapy and start to understand myself better, to see where are my weaknesses, where are my strengths, what led me to where I am right now. But in a weird way, I was still kind of avoiding a lot of things, or a lot of topics, and still my goal was to get out of it as fast as possible, although I realized that it will not be as fast as I was hoping it would be. Then I realized, okay, I'm actually okay now. I'm actually doing quite well. Maybe not fully recovered, but it's not much left. So I started a YouTube channel in German. It was 1 year ago. I started the YouTube channel to talk about all these things. This video that I'm making now, I made that on my German channel first. And I started to talk about all these experiences. And then I realized actually there are some kind of dark spots in my story. I didn't understand what happened really during my burnout and stuff like this. And then I realized the more videos I make, the more I talk about things that I don't really, lessons that I haven't learned myself. So I kind of felt like I was faking it. And I hate nothing more than faking things. Something didn't really add up. I wanted to tell people how to overcome burnout, but it didn't seem real. It didn't seem genuine, because it felt like the lessons that I'm trying to teach here, I haven't learned them myself. And then I started to dig deeper into it, and then I realized that I actually kind of had a mind gap of 1.5 years of what happened in my job at work, where I turned from this confident, I can do everything, I can achieve everything guy, to the guy that turned into, who was depressed and negative and couldn't do anything. And I didn't understand this connection, so I started to deliberately face those moments and deliberately go into it more and more. And every time you understand a little bit better, you're like, okay, now I'm out of it. Now I understand everything. And these things really, like, I started to disassemble my life, sort of, and realized where I know this emotion from, how this faced me, how is this connected to what happened in the past, what happened 10 years ago, what happened 15 years ago. And then I realized how deep things like this go. It's not just for me, it was the case. It doesn't have to apply for everyone, but for me it was the case. It's not just, oh, you're exhausted, you're burnt out, but it is what formed your character to get there. It is what happened in your life, every single thing that led you there. I realized that I made a lot of mistakes beforehand, very similar mistakes that I made then that led me to this, that I could avoid, but I just simply didn't want to face the negative emotions, or I didn't know how to face the negative emotions. For me, it was always like, yeah, I'm just this positive guy. I don't need to think about this. I just need to think positive and everything will turn out well. But that is not how life is. You need to have a way to face negative things and to overcome or to learn from all these things. And then I started to completely disassemble my whole life, and it went back until childhood. I started to I don't know if maybe you're familiar with the inner child thing, which sounds so cliche-like. I went to a therapist and he told me, yeah, like, have you thought about your inner child, blah blah blah. And I'm like, don't give me that bullshit, come on. But then when you're there and actually have to face your inner child, you see your life completely different. And it is a big part of healing, and it is a big part of understanding what happened, what led you to where you are, and it is a big part of strengthening yourself in that case. So from this journey, there was supposed to be a few sessions and then I'm done, and then I can continue with my work, with my life, with whatever again. It turned out to be a much bigger project and went much bigger and led me to a journey of understanding myself in every deep sense, and all the struggles that I went to life, how they're all connected together, how everything is kind of a bigger picture that led me to where I am right now. And I know a lot of people are struggling with the same process, and I kind of, like I said in the beginning, I wished somebody would tell me what I'm telling now back then, when I was losing hope and sitting on the side of my bed and didn't believe in recovering ever from the situation again. That's why I know how the struggle is. I know how deep that goes. If you watch this video, please do not give up. Continue with this, go to therapy, find some help. I can only share my experiences. I'm not a therapist, but I can share everything that I learned on that journey, and that is what I'm gonna do on that channel. At the end, everything that happens for a reason. It all makes sense eventually. Thank you so much for watching, and see you soon.